All right, everyone. Welcome to our first podcast. I'm very happy today to have one of my ex-coaches and one of my current mentors. He's also a very respected coach in the community of basketball and just nationwide in the Bay Area, Mr. Frank Allocco. How you doing,
Randy,
Coach?
it's a pleasure to be here, Randy. I've had, I know we both share something in common. We have a great passion for basketball and using it as a medium to reach kids and reach others. So it's happy to be here with you.
I appreciate you coming in, and you were the first person I actually thought about when I first started thinking about creating this podcast, just because every time we used to have a conversation on the court or on the sidelines, or even when I come into your office, we just sit down for like an hour and just time goes by, and sometimes we don't got to talk about basketball. It's about life, and it's always has great. You always have great stories for me, so I thought, hey, let me share it with everyone on my social media outlets and whoever else wants to view it.
I appreciate that. Now, I always enjoyed those visits. Very spontaneous. We would just get out and have like a little coffee club meeting there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me get right into it. Whenever people think of Frank Allocco, I feel like a lot of the times they think of basketball. But little do they know that you were a three-sport athlete in your heyday. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you first got into playing, baseball, basketball, and football?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey and I had three brothers. So we were a pretty competitive family. Everybody played everything. My dad was a great athlete. Unfortunately, he never got to play in high school because his father came over from Italy, and their mindset was to work. You didn't have time. You had to go get a job and help with the family. He had, eight brothers and sisters. And so he was pretty occupied all the time doing that kind of stuff. And I know he tried to play once. He tried to sneak it, and I think he got hurt and he got caught and he wasn't allowed to play. But I remember being a little kid watching him play in men's leagues, and man, he could play. I mean, he played basketball. He was an amazing baseball, softball player. So I think, we did have his guidance. The funny thing about him was he really didn't work with us. Today you see there's so many people that are so involved with their children, and sometimes it becomes, you're kind of making the kid play and the kid doesn't have the passion for it. I think we were blessed in that we really got to do our thing. My father had his first catch with me when I was 22 years old. We threw a football around and he threw it underhand, So he wasn't a dad that was out there pushing us to do things. He kind of just let it go. But, I also had the advantage of three brothers, getting to play with my brothers. Back in the day, everybody played outside. So our street was like our playground. We played baseball. It was our football field. My dad was a volunteer fire chief. He had the phone company come in and put a telephone pole in so we could put a basketball hoop on it. So the street was everything to us. And we played all our games there and got to compete with our brothers all the time with the neighborhood kids. My first experience playing was in Pop Warner football. I played Pop Warner football. I was a quarterback. And I remember Y.A. Tittle was the quarterback of the Giants. So I took number 14 to be like him. And that kind of became our family number. My son, my daughter, and my grandkids all wear that number. That's kind of our number. But played Pop Warner football, had a great experience representing the town, Little League baseball, played Police Athletic League basketball, played all the sports. And at some point, you start to realize you have a chance to be pretty good at it. And so I really started putting more time and energy into it. But, Randy, I tell you, we didn't have the distractions. You didn't have video games. You didn't have the computer. You got up in the morning and you left the house. My father had a great line, get out of the house. It's too hot. And so, we'd just go out and play baseball in the morning, and then at noon we'd go play basketball at the community pool from 12 to 5. And we'd come home and have dinner. Then at night, go out and throw the football, down at the high school with my friends. And then we'd go play under the lights, more basketball. So you just kind of played all day. So it was really a great, great time to grow up.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I was really surprised when you told me that one football story, which we will get to it in a little bit. But which sport do you think that you were best at? I know you probably think that you're the top of the game in each sport, but which one do you think you were the most talented in?
That's really a great question. It really is. And, my high school coaches will all tell you something different. My high school baseball coach said you should have played baseball. I said, I think he could have been a pro baseball player. To be honest with you, I don't agree with that. I mean, I had a great senior year. And I'll tell you a little lesson from that. My senior year, my sophomore year, I hit 285. I was second team all league shortstop, made a couple of errors, really had a really good year for a sophomore. My junior year, I hit 230 and I made about 12 errors, which is a lot in 24 games. And my senior year, I wasn't going to play baseball. So I put no time into baseball in the off season. And my senior year, my high school coach, Coach Miller, who I'm still one of my best friends to this day, I talk to him every couple of weeks. Coach Miller said to me, you need to come and play baseball. I said, Coach, I'm not very good. I'm a 230 hitter. And he said, I'll tell you what, go take your recruiting trips. And I visited Boston College. I visited Notre Dame. I visited Duke. I visited Princeton. And he said, when you come back, if you want to play, you can play. And so I came back and I was in the mood to play. And I played. And I hit 436 and I made one error and I made first team all state. And that's without picking up a baseball from my junior year. And what I learned from that was it was all about confidence. You got to believe in yourself. And it made up for the fact that I didn't get any repetitions. So I think these kids that go out and, and you want to hit a ball 7 hours a day, there's other parts of your game you got to develop. You got to develop that mental side. And to be honest with you, Randy, not to be a little cocky here, but, I would get up to the plate and I would say to myself, I'm going to Notre Dame. I'm one of the top athletes in the country. Bring it, And I just had that confidence. And when I was a junior, I would sit there and say, please don't hit me the ball. Please don't hit me the ball. Please don't hit me the ball. And that's probably why I made 12 errors. When I was a senior, I was at shortstop saying, hit me the ball so I can throw the guy out from my knees to show everybody what a quarterback's arm looks like from Notre Dame. So it's just this whole different perspective. So my high school coach always says you should have played pro baseball. I personally, I played football in college and basketball at Notre Dame under two legendary coaches. I think, football wise, I didn't have a great arm. I'm not very fast. I think what I brought was leadership. I had a way to get people in the end zone. My teammates responded to me. I think my leadership is what made me a good quarterback, but I don't think I, had the greatest skill in the world. I think basketball, I often think maybe that's the route I should have really focused on basketball first because I think I had a pretty good ability to field the game. I passed very well. I was a very, very good shooter. I shot really deep. I averaged 30 points a game in high school. That's without a 3-point line. And to be honest with you, I wasn't like Randy. I didn't get to the rim. I just shot deep, man. So, I probably hit, 7 threes a game, and averaged 30 a game without the 3-point line. So I think that probably was my best skill. But I'll tell you, the lure of going to Notre Dame and playing for a coach like Ara Parsegian, and at that time, Notre Dame football was very, very special. And you're the quarterback at Notre Dame. It was really a unique position. So I was drawn to that. And I have no regrets about choosing the course that I've taken. I also, a lot of my relatives will say, you missed the boat. You should have concentrated on basketball. But, I have no regrets. Sports are all about learning and learning from great mentors. And it's what you take away from the experience. And in that regard, it was worth it to play under a legendary coach like Ara Parsegian because he formed a lot of who I am. And it's also created the base that has inspired other kids through my coaching because I've just taken all the skills that I've learned from him and implemented them with kids that I've coached.
Just going off topic a little bit, we'll continue with that. I like where you went with the Notre Dame football and Notre Dame overall, but just going off topic a little bit, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things that you said. One thing you said earlier was you got to want it. You said that you wanted it. And that's exactly what I tell my kids too. Sometimes these kids they're taken into me by their parents, and sometimes it looks like the parents want it more than them. So I tell them, I sit them down. I tell them, you got to want it. Do you love basketball? Not do you like basketball? Do you like basketball because it's cool? You like basketball because it might get you girls? Do you like basketball because you see it on TV? No, you have to love it. Two, I like what you said about confidence. I also try to instill that into my kids. Every time they're doing a move, I tell them you have to be confident with the move. How do you be confident? You practice, but everything is it runs off that confidence, And
It's true.
Three, I like what you said about your coach instilling a lot of values and a whole bunch of other things into you that you now instill into whoever you coach, And I feel like that is also true with me, with you as a coach, one, and all the other coaches that I've had, So every time you said a couple things to me that I remember even till this day, that whenever I'm coaching, I always tell the kids, like, for example, I remember one time, oh, you're a great defensive coach, right? So every time I try to teach defense to my kids, I always try to teach them to play smarter, play more fundamental defense. And one time you told me, you're like, yeah, if think of it this way, like if this guy has a 50% chance to make the shot wide open, okay, he has 50% chance. But if you stick that hand in his face and you're up in him, then it might lower to 20. He's got to play the odds. And if he makes it, he makes it, And but that's a great defensive mentality that you should have. And I still tell all my kids that, and all the things that you taught me. There's a whole bunch more that we'll get to, But I just wanted to just acknowledge that what you said.
I appreciate that. And, speaking to your point about kids wanting it, one of my favorite quotes I often say is, for a basketball player, there truly is no season. All it takes is the availability of a ball and a basket. And for the addicted, the desire to put that ball in that basket is irresistible. And you think about that, just all you need to play this game. You don't need a friend. You just need a ball and a basket. You go out in that backyard. And to this day, Randy, I'll tell you, I cherish those moments. People will say to me, what's your favorite memory of playing sports? Was it the Notre Dame winning a national championship? Was it coaching the Michael Jordan All-American game, or the McDonald's All-American game, or winning state championship? I said, no, my favorite memory was shooting in my backyard when twilight would hit and my mother would come out and say, Frank, come on in, it's dinner time. And I'd say, Mom, let me shoot till I miss, and then she'd come out 10 minutes later and say, come on, you got to come in. And I'd say, are you happy? Miss a shot. And, but I just loved getting better. And I used to talk to myself. And I think there's a beauty in just being by yourself with a ball and a basket, and hearing that chain net. And I would talk to myself, say, you're getting good. Just keep working on your game. Someday you're going to be special, And I try to impart that to kids that I coach today and to my grandchildren, that there's just a beauty about working on your game by yourself. And to tell you the truth, we don't have a lot of opportunities these days to do that. A lot of time kids won't do that. They won't go in the backyard. They want something that's organized and they want somebody to lead it. And that's important too. However, the great ones go beyond that. I think a great lesson that my son always said that he learned from me was, I used to tell him that, and I was coaching at Northgate High School. I got the pleasure to coach my son, who was an amazing competitor. And, we won a state championship there, the NorCal championship. And, but I used to tell him, we do a lot. We lift weights, we shoot, we do individual work. We play, so many games in the summertime. And I used to tell him, I said, remember, everyone's doing that. Everyone in this program is doing what you're doing. If you want to be special, you have to do more than that, right? So that's what I think kids got to understand today. If you want to be great, it's not enough to do what your teammates are doing. You got to go beyond that. That's what the Kobe Bryants did. That's what Kevin Durant does. That's what Steph Curry does. They're putting hours and hours in beyond what they're doing with their team.
Yeah. 1 second. Let me just close my door real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And it's a funny story, because just yesterday I was training one of my friends as well, and then I acknowledged the same thing as you. I was like, yeah, man, seeing the ball go into the basket is so addicting. And yeah. I just bought a shooting machine. I got in my backyard, so I'm always back there. Like I was there until like 4 a.m. last night, and then I heard my neighbor like, shut up, go to sleep, So I mean that to me that was time to go in. But I told him it's like a drug, man. It's the best fun.
And Randy, you're a good example of that. You think about your history, Coach Walters found you at Corrette, playing recreation basketball and, shooting it up and competing, and, and you don't have great size, you'd look at you and say, there's no way that guy played college basketball. And you did. And I think you could have been a really great contributor had you played more years of college basketball, because you had the intangibles, and you had that desire to shoot till 4 o'clock in the morning, and you got away with things that you made up for, things that you might have lacked in terms of size or athleticism. You made up for it with a great heart and a desire to be the best, and you were a great teammate. So I think that's another skill. There's two skills I think are very important for kids to hear. And one is playing hard. In playing hard, everybody thinks they play hard. You know, I mean, the trademark of my teams over 24 years of coaching high school, those kids played hard. You know, I mean, every loose ball was theirs, and to give your maximum effort the entire game. I remember coaching a kid, Jason Williams at Northgate, great player and great kid, and he struggled his junior year. You know, he moved into the area, new player, and he did struggle. And you know, I challenged him after a summer league game. I remember we lost at the buzzer to Fremont High School in Oakland by 1 point in a summer league game. And after the game, I said, you know, you're going to have to change your mindset if you're going to play here. You know, you've got to compete. And I said, I want you to try doing this. I want you to play hard for 15 seconds. That means you're in a stance all the time. Off the ball, you're active, you're talking, you're communicating, your feet never stand still. On offense, you're moving without the ball. You're going to get every rebound. Master 15 seconds. Then we'll go to 30. And then we'll go to 45. And then we'll go to a minute. And if we can get you where you go full speed effort for 2.5 to 3 minutes, you're going to be a special player. And I got to tell you, that kid took the challenge. And his senior year, he was special, and he led us to the state championship, beating Artesia, tremendously loaded team from LA. We beat them, and a lot of it was just his effort, getting loose balls, getting rebounds, and it all started with just 15 seconds, trying to play hard. And when I mean play hard, that means feet never stop moving. You're active, you're communicating, and gradually building it up. So I think playing hard is a skill that needs to be coached. It just doesn't happen. And the second is being a great teammate. You know, you look at someone's role on a team, you know, everyone's role is important. I was a backup quarterback at Notre Dame. I'm the number 2 quarterback. At our 1973, our reunion of our national championship team, I was asked to speak on behalf of the team. And I got up there to speak. I was humbled, you know, to speak in front of my teammates. You know, probably 12 of them played in the NFL. My coach, who was a legend, Father Hesburgh, whose picture I have here with Martin Luther King, Father Hesburgh was one of the greatest presidents of a university in history. These were giants of men that were there. And I get up to speak, and I said, the fact that you would ask me to speak at this reunion speaks volumes about who we were. Because I was a backup quarterback and holder. But yet you thought I was important. You thought my role was important, and it was important because I kept the guys loose. You know, I was a motivator. I could pump other guys up. I could keep the locker room laugh. I made people laugh. So my role was important. And I got to be honest with you. People would say to me, why don't you transfer? You can go start somewhere else. No, I wanted to be a part of that team. I wanted to win a national championship with those guys. And looking back at it, I'm proud. You know, I never look and say, I was a backup quarterback. I was an important guy on a 1973 national championship team. And I think, you know, you were one of the great teammates of all time. You really were. You know, you kept guys in the game. You kept guys being positive. And I think they saw you work hard. It challenged others to work as hard as you were doing.
No, I appreciate that. And, you know, that story about how you got your player to work hard, you know, it reminds me of something that I'm gonna go off a little topic here. I was gonna save this for later, but this is a perfect time to bring it up. I remember you told me, how do you? I was like, no, I forget exactly how we get to the topic, but you were telling me how to get your students or to get your players to play hard for you, to get them to trust you. You know, you told me first they have to trust you, and two, well, it also helps that is they have to like you, they have to love you. You
It's
know,
true.
and you know that always stuck with me, and that's why even now to this day I try to be more relatable to these kids. You know, you don't want to just go in there and tell them what to do, blah blah. You know, you want to be relatable, you want to talk to them, you know, you want to break things down to them. You don't want to get mad at them right away. You know, you want to give
Yep.
them a couple chances before you get mad at them. You want to build that relationship, you want to build that trust, and then once they start trusting you, they're like, okay, well, if he's telling me this, it might be right, you know.
Yeah.
It's probably going to work, you know. So that's one thing that also took off of you, and I also believe that you do also have to play really hard, you know. Me as only I'm only 5'7", you know. I think that's one thing I've always had, you know. Like you said, some intangibles. I've always played harder than everyone. I've guarded people that are 6'6", 6'7". I
Yep.
don't care. I'll pick them up full court, you know. I'll do that the entire game, and I'll play hard in every possession, whether it's defense, I'll dive on the ball, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And it's also funny that what you brought up, you know, he said, oh yeah, you know, you don't have like the body of a basketball player. And also, you know, some funny stories when I used to try to go into the USF gym, it was like 15 minutes before the game or something, and then the security did not want to let me in. He said, "No way, no way, you're on the basketball team, you know, no way." And that, I was arguing with this guy over and over. He made me go all the way around, you know. I just didn't want to go around because it took like extra 3 minutes. And then one time I went into the gym late at night just to go get some shots up, and the security guard followed me, and then he's like, "Yeah, what are you doing here?" I told him, I was like, "Look at my bag, man. I'm on the team." And then everyone else had to like confirm and everything, you know. So I've
That's
always had a
funny.
little trouble with people believing me that I actually play basketball. And one other question they always give me is like, "What position do you play?" I was like, "Dummy, come on. What do you think I play? Center?"
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
it's so true that you have to earn respect and you have to earn love. And I think at the core of it, as a youth leader, coach, you have to show them what you're willing to do. I think that they respect that you're working hard for them, they will work hard for you. I made as coaches, we always change. At least I think a good leader is always evaluating yourself and saying, am I reaching these kids? I'm of the mode that if a kid's not doing it correctly, it's because you haven't found the way to reach them. How many times have we watched a youth game and a coach will yell out a high school game and I've told you that. How many times have I told you? I've told you that 1,000 times, he yells at the kid. And my mindset is I look at that guy and say, well, you've told that kid 1,000 times and he still isn't getting it. Obviously, that's not the right way to reach him. You better try something different. It's not the kid that's not getting it. You haven't found the right way to get that information to him so he understands it. So I've always believed it's on the coach to get the message. If the kid's not getting it, it's not his fault. It's your fault. You got to find another avenue and a way to get it. And I always approached it more from that angle of love, that I would do anything for you. I can tell you, like, as a coach, when I was young, I really got on the kids. I challenged them. I yelled a lot at the kids. But at the end of my career, I was like a loving grandfather. I would bring a kid over during a game, put my arm around him real subtly and say, hey, Randy, do you think I love you? And the kid would say, I do, coach. I said, no, do you really believe that I love you? And the kid would say, yes, coach, I do. I said, do you believe that I will do anything for you for the rest of your life? The kid would say, I believe that. I said, well, then will you get one rebound for me? Just get one rebound. And the kid would put it in perspective to him, and one of the things I think when you, as a leader, you have to walk the talk, right? So in my case, look at us, right? I'll do anything for you. You know that. When you called me to be on a podcast, you got it. What do you need? You need something from me, you got it for the rest of your life. And I only had a year with you. But I think that I would always be there for you. So I got a feeling you'd do anything for me too, because that's what relationships are about. And that's what team building. And people always ask me, how did you win 88% of your games over 24 years? It was easy. Just get people to love each other and play for each other and sacrifice for each other and trust each other. Had nothing to do with having incredible talent. We didn't recruit. I never recruited a kid in my life. We just had kids who got there and got better and worked really hard, whether it was Northgate at De La Salle, but they believed in the core values of what we promoted, which was discipline, love, and sacrifice. And we had those three things going. Yeah, we had some really good players and we had years when we had very average players, but the results always seemed to be the same because it wasn't the coach. And in some respects, it wasn't the talent level. It was the players buying into the concepts of what we did and what we believed in, which at the core of it was love. And that's a very, very powerful force that I think we all should tap.
yeah, I love what you just said. As a young coach myself, I find myself getting frustrated sometimes. But I tell myself I can't give up on these kids. Some kids just don't get it sometimes. They
Right.
don't get it the first time, third time, fourth time, fifth time. And I feel like it's definitely the most challenging part, and that's definitely what separates a bad coach from a good coach and a good coach from a great coach, is being able to adapt and learn to get the message through different players. Like I have this one kid, he struggles with shooting sometimes, and then it's just so frustrating. Like I know you could do it. I've seen you do it so many times, but I think sometimes it's a mental thing, and then I just keep on trying different things, and finally I found something that works, and it's satisfying. I think part of being a coach is satisfying to just see not only just see the results but see the growth in someone.
You know, Randy, I've been doing these videos on YouTube, and the last one I did was about what's going to push your button. You know, for every kid, there's a button, and something's going to push you and challenge you to change your approach and get serious about it. You know, when I interview people, one of the first questions I ask, when did you realize you could be good? You know, at what point, what happened that made you turn that corner from recreational player to serious player? What's going to challenge you to say that's enough? It could be a loss. And, you know, you said earlier, some kids don't get it and it gets frustrating. I got news for you. Some adults don't get it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is everybody gets it eventually. They do. So my point is, why not get it at 14, you know, and at 11 and have it practice it by the time you're 18? You've been doing the right way for 7 years. Unfortunately, a lot of us get it at a crisis, right? We miss the winning shot and, oh, I better start working on my game. Maybe I should practice that shot. Or we lose a game. What really used to always bother me is when you lose and the kids would cry. What are you crying for? That doesn't change anything. What could have changed it is if you worked harder. You know, so it's not about crying, it's about working harder. Now you're disappointed that you lost, but you know, you had the opportunity, but you've got to be ready. And then kids would say they'd learn from that loss and go out and work harder and maybe come back the next year, you know, and that happens a lot, but sometimes it happens in adversity. You know, it happens when we lose a job. It happens when we experience loss, you know, or we get in trouble, you know, and but you're going to get it at some point. You get the message. So it's great to try to get it early and practice it and do things the right way and commit to excellence and make it a habit. You know, life is all about habits. It's the way you treat people and the way you treat yourself and the habits that you create in your life approach.
You know, I love the way our conversation is going, but I also want to get back to the, your whole entire Notre Dame experience. You know, recently, or yesterday actually, I was doing a little bit of research on you. I thought I knew you already, but I started learning a little bit more things about you. I read this article that they have on you. I think it was written by you as well on the Notre Dame page. You know, just want you to maybe just talk a little bit about your experience at Notre Dame and why you wanted to go there.
Well, I wanted to go to Notre Dame since I was a little kid. You know, I'm probably about 10, 11 years old. I used to watch Notre Dame football on television. And that was in 1966 when, you know, Notre Dame was really, Ara Parseghian came over there in 1965 and John Ewart was the quarterback. He was a backup quarterback. And, you know, Ara was the right system for him and he blossomed and won the Heisman Trophy. And I started to get excited about that. So I was about 12 years old at that time. Then in 66, you know, they won the national championship. And, you know, like most Catholic kids growing up in New Jersey, everybody wanted to be the quarterback at Notre Dame. But I sort of, you know, a good lesson for kids is that you got to announce your intentions, I believe. And I did. You know, I started telling anybody who would listen, I'm going to Notre Dame. And I remember very clearly being in 8th grade and telling the sister, the nun that taught the 8th grade girls and said, "Sister, do you follow Notre Dame football?" And she said, "I do." I said, "Well, keep watching because one day I'm going to be the starting quarterback at Notre Dame." And I went to my high school in 9th grade the next year, and I went up to the football coach, great football program. And I said, "You know, what can you do to get me to Notre Dame?" I said, "I want you tell me what to do and I'll do it. Just give me any drill." He looked at me and laughed. He said, "Notre Dame, you're never going to play here. How are you going to play at Notre Dame?" He said, "You're 5'10", 125, 135 pounds, and you got an All-American quarterback playing ahead of you." You know, and I said, "Don't worry about that. Just work with me." And he did. You guys spent a lot of time with me. And then I was a backup as a sophomore. Then my junior year, I got to start and I broke most of the records of that All-American. And then I'm getting recruited by everybody. And I end up going, my dream school, Notre Dame, was all over me. And everything was going incredible. I make preseason All-American team. And our team is loaded. We had 2 preseason scrimmages. We blew out 2 teams that ultimately went on to win the state championships in New Jersey. We blew those teams out. And 2 minutes into the first game, you know, I threw a touchdown pass. I was 2 for 2 with a touchdown pass, 2 minutes into the game. And I'm thinking, this is going to be the most special year of my life. Next time we got the ball, I was running the option. I faked the pitch. I went running down and I collided with a defensive back and snapped my collarbone in half. And I remember thinking, there goes my dream. It's all over. And it was. I mean, I was devastated. My high school coach came over and looked at me and started crying. And I knew it was over. And I kept telling my dad and my brothers that all the years I put into this, all gone with one hit. And my brother Jerry was in the hospital with me and he said, "Hey, this is God's way of telling you to play basketball." put your energy into basketball, heal, and have a great year. And that's what I sort of wrapped my mind around, that Notre Dame and football was over. I was going to have a great year in basketball. And I did. I told you I averaged 29.5 or something, or 29.1, and close to 30 a game. And I was getting recruited by everybody: Duke, Princeton, Boston College, a lot of big schools, Maryland with Lefty Driesell. And then all of a sudden, Notre Dame came to watch me play basketball in February. And coach afterwards said, "We want you to come out on an official visit." And I'm going, I don't want to play football anymore. I'm playing basketball. But I took the official visit out there, and I got on that campus, and it was electric. I cried most of the trip because I didn't want to go, and I didn't want to play football, yet I'd been telling everybody I was going to play since I was a little kid. And now I'm in a spot where they're going to offer me, and I don't want to play. But I basically went to the grotto. I knelt and I prayed, and I said, "You got to get me out of this, find a way out." And went to bed upset. And what am I going to tell my friends and my family? I'm not coming here. The next day, Coach Parsegian told me, "You remind me of Joe Theismann. You're from New Jersey. You run, you throw." He says, you talk like him. You're built like him. We were almost the same size. And by now it's 6'1", 170. And he offered me a full scholarship. And he said, "Take this home, talk to your mom and dad." I said, "I don't have to talk to anybody. I'm coming." So I just kind of flipped that weekend. And I don't know why I did, but I did. And then I go there, and I'm the number 9 quarterback because I didn't play my senior year. And freshmen weren't eligible. It was the last year that freshmen couldn't play. And I sat behind a guy named Tommy. I worked up from number 9 to number 2, ended up being the backup to Tom Clements, who was another freshman, who was a terrific player. And then sort of stayed as his backup for 3 years, never could, take over that spot. And a lot of it had to do with I got off to a bad start because I didn't play. And then my 5th year, I got the chance to stay and be the starting quarterback. And I embraced that. And then was all excited to do that. And then Coach Parsegian retired. They brought in a new coach, Dan Devine. I didn't know if I should still stay. I didn't really know him. He didn't know me. He talked me into staying, which I did. And then went through the spring and separated my shoulder. So my chance was gone again, another injury to my shoulder. And I remember Randy laying on that ground, the trainer coming over, and I just looked at him and said, "All the time, all the years I put into this gone in one hit." But I stayed that summer, rehabbed, and tried to come back, had to have a second surgery in August, which set me back a couple of weeks, and ended up not starting. But playing that year, I was the quarterback in the Rudy game. We got Rudy in the game at the end of the game. So I did have that little notoriety, but I never did get to achieve my drill of being a starter. But as I told you earlier, I think the lessons that I got from the adversity, they were hidden blessings, and they really helped to form my philosophy as a coach and a leader.
That's a great story, really inspiring. I've always strived to have a story like that in mind. Maybe my story isn't over, but every time I hear that story, I mean, it's not my first time hearing it, not my second time. Like I said, I read an article about you, and every time I hear it, it's just amazing what you went through, and you kept on pushing, and it's hearing that right now really just gives me motivation to really push. Right now I'm in midterms in law school, so almost there. One more, it's my last year in law school, so I'll be taking the bar soon. So that's a little extra motivation that I need to really get through what I'm going through right now.
That's great. Well, you know what? And I've known you and I've coached you. So I've always had confidence that you can do whatever you want to do because you have the drive, you have the desire, and you have a little bit of an attitude, and maybe some ways you were blessed by being 5'7" because you've had to fight, for everything you've ever had in your life. And so you're a fighter, and fighting is in your DNA. So you're going to battle, you're going to always battle and do what you got to do and never accept someone telling you can't. And you've overcome stuff your whole life. So you're one of my guys that I really admire that I've ever coached for the obstacles that you've overcome to get where you are.
Thank you. So let's go back to that championship run that you guys had in Notre Dame. How was that? And which year was that again?
1973. Randy, and that all started in 1972, with adversity. We played Nebraska in the Orange Bowl. They had a terrific team. David Hum, Johnny Rogers, one of the greatest football players I've ever seen. They were loaded. Rich Glover, I think, was a defensive lineman and just so talented. And they beat us 40-6 in the Orange Bowl. And after that game, Coach Parsegian walked in the locker room and he said, "Gentlemen, remember this as long as you live. Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which under prosperous conditions might have remained dormant." And he walked out of the room. Well, that saying became our battle cry. Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which under prosperous conditions might have remained dormant. And what that meant was, you take adversity one way or the other. You can complain, say, "I've got a bad call from the ref," or "my coach doesn't like me," or you take it and say, "Hey, I got to find talents within me that I don't even know I had." And that's what we did. We lifted harder. We ran harder. We worked out harder. We all dug deep down inside us to find what we didn't even know existed. And everybody improved individually, and we improved as a team. And from an 8-3 season, we come back and go 11-0. Beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl 24-23 to win the national championship and go 11-0. And it all happened because of that challenge that we accepted through disappointment and through failure. So that was really a special year for me. I don't know if I could ever duplicate that experience, because from the ashes, we rose up and created something very, very unique because of our commitment to each other.
And who started over at the quarterback position?
That was Tom Clements. On that team, Dave Casper, the great Oakland Raider tight end, Hall of Fame tight end, was on that team. Steve Sylvester was on that team. He played in the NFL. He was with the Raiders as well. There were many, many players on that team. Ross Browner, Willie Fry, Luther Bradley. I mean, the list goes on and on. Al Hunter. We just had some great, great players on that team. But I have to tell you, most of those guys made themselves players in the off season. I mean, Dave Casper is one of the greatest athletes I've ever seen. Dave Casper is not this cut guy. He's a little bit doughy. He's a little bit, he doesn't look like he's an athlete. But I'm telling you what, man, that dude could play. And he went both ways his junior year. He played offensive tackle and defensive tackle, and he punted. That's how special he was. Now, his senior year, he moves to tight end. Never played that position. He makes All-American. Goes and plays in the pro, becomes a Hall of Fame tight end. But I think Dave was sort of emblematic of that team, just a guy who really worked hard, wasn't a 4-4 guy, wasn't a cut 260-pound tight end. He was just an athlete who just loved competing and loved his teammates and really overachieved, in my opinion.
On that subject of team people that you played with, who would you say is the best player, basketball and football, that you played with or against?
Well, that's a great question. Football, I'm telling you, Johnny Rodgers, I've never seen a football player like him. I mean, I think in that game, he ran back a punt, he ran for a touchdown, he threw for a touchdown, and he caught a touchdown. He was electric, and he wasn't very big. He was probably about 5'9", but I'm telling you, he was an electric player. On the basketball court, Bill Walton, was pretty special at UCLA, and we broke their streak up at our place, but I'm telling you what, that man was special, and that those teams that Coach Wooden had were just like pieces of a puzzle that all fit, and all came together to be very, very unique. So I think Bill Walton was one of them. I got to work out when I was in college. I used to work out with Joe Namath. I went to Joe Namath's football camp, and I was a counselor there, and I used to work with Joe, and I got to throw with him after practice. And I got to tell you, that man had a cannon. Like, you talk about a gun, that ball just flew out of his hand 30 yards on a dime. It didn't go up at all. It didn't go up or down. It went straight. That man could I've never seen a guy throw a football like that. So he was really, really a special player. And, and when you see great players, I remember one of the best baseball players I ever saw. You won't know this name, Pat Sullivan. Played at Verona High School against me he was a senior and I was a sophomore. He was hitting balls into the football field, and he played at Michigan, just a special, special player. And you could tell when he came up to bat that he was unique. And I'll tell you one more story. When I played basketball, we played Michigan State. And we drove to that game in a bus because it's not that far. We got there early, and I went to watch my college roommate, Greg Cortina, through the shot put. He was one of the best shot putters in the country. So when I went to watch Greg, I'm watching these two guys run. And Randy, I don't know anything about track, but I could see these two guys run, and I knew they were special. And, that's amazing when you talk about it, because you're talking about tenths of seconds, right? But I just watched those guys stride, and I knew they were special. And as I'm watching them, this coach comes over to me, And he said, you know, how you doing? I said, what do you, I said, you know, those two guys, who are they? He goes, you're looking at the two fastest men in the world.
Wow.
And I got chills, just the fastest men in the world, Herb Washington and Marshall Dill. And they ran in that meet and they were unique. In fact, Herb Washington played with the Oakland A's. I think he has a record. I think he's the only player to play in the majors, never had an at bat. He just went into pinch run because he could fly. So when you see a unique athlete, you know, and I'll tell you something for kids out there that may be listening. When my son was in 6th grade or maybe a little bit younger, I don't remember exactly, but I took him to watch Jason Kidd play in the section championship game. And I remember leaving that gym and saying to my son, imagine being the kind of player that people would drive from miles around just to watch you play. Remember, how would it be to be that special? You know, and I always kind of held that up as a motivator because I do think it's unique when you're that talented and people come to watch a Todd Lichty or a Jason Kidd or these guys that really are special. But then, you know, today we've got to look up to people and then aspire to be that. You know, don't go get autographs. Go be that guy. You know, go work on it. You can be that. There's no limitations to what you can achieve. You just have to have the desire to work for it and the chance and the ability to embrace adversity and get better from failure to make yourself a better player and a better person.
I like that. I like that. Another question, last question on your playing days. Given this political climate that we're in right now, you know, we see a lot of racism going on. And I know we've talked about this before. I know that's why I love talking to you. You know, we could talk about anything. With how was it? You know, you grew up playing in the '60s and the '70s. How was it like seeing the way you know, Africans, Americans, or just colored people in general were just treated differently? And I'm sure in sports you had to be friends with them. You're good friends with a lot of them. You know, they're like brothers. And how'd that feel like seeing that?
I think you're proud to be a part of sport, you know, where sport really did have more of the teamwork and people coming together. But I can tell you, my brother Jerry played in college, and, you know, when he traveled on trips, the African-American kids could not, you know, eat with them. You know, it was an awful time. And I remember growing up in the playground, you had a colored fountain and a white fountain, you know, and as a kid, you're looking at this and you don't understand it. You know, and I remember my uncle had a trucking company, and one of his drivers was African American. He had a boy who was about, you know, 6 years old, 8 years old, we might have been, and we became the best of friends. And it was my first experience with racism. I would hear people, "Why are you hanging around with that kid?" You know, and he was just Freddie. He was my guy. You know, we were the best of friends, and you know, so I had that experience really young of just not understanding it, right? You saw it all around it. But it was a difficult time because it was just everywhere you went, you saw it and you felt it, and you tried to embrace it, you'd be criticized for it, you know. But I also think that I grew up in a great time in the 60s when people did battle for it, and the civil rights movement became very powerful. I mean, when John F. Kennedy died, Lyndon Johnson sort of took on that civil rights initiative that the Kennedys had started and embraced it, and change started to happen. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened as quickly as we all would like it to happen. It still exists. But I think we all have to understand we're all in this together. We're all teammates. You know, we all have the same dreams and same aspirations. And now we just have to create the same opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, every time we talk, you know, I love it. I always learn something new from you, and that's one thing I love about you. You know, you're a sports guy, but also, you know, I'm really interested in history, and you're able to teach me a lot about what happened back in the day. And you know, it just seems like back in the day, but it's not that long ago. You know, but yeah,
No, it isn't. But, you know, it's sad, Randy, because every time you think we're going forward, you take a couple steps back, you know. But I think there just has to be a heightened awareness. And it is, and Randy, it's simple stuff. You know, I really do believe it's simple. At the core of everything is love. You know, I mean, we know what works. It's just, unfortunately, people don't want to do it. You know, they don't want to love each other, and they don't want to discipline, and they don't want to be accountable to each other. But, you know, the bottom line is we're all in this together. And that's what I loved about athletics. You know, on our national championship team, I never looked at the color of someone's skin or their religion, or we didn't look at that. You just looked at that Is that guy going to do his job? I remember, I could show you this, Randy. I have it downstairs. I had a little scrapbook, and I swear to you, the first page in my scrapbook was something I cut out from Scholastic magazine when I was probably 10 years old. And it said, when you're in a foxhole in Vietnam, you don't worry about the color of a man's skin. You only worry about that he's there to do a job, and you're there to do a job, and you're there to do the job for each other. So I remember reading that when I was 10, and it had enough impact on me that it's on the front page of my sport book, my scrapbook. That's the first thing there, is that hey, it's about living together and working together. And when you're in those environments, all this stuff seems to disappear. But when you're in society, it all reappears, because there's this sense of I'm doing my own thing, and your happiness has nothing to do with mine. We can't have that. That's not what teams are about. We have one common goal we should have, and we're all pieces of that puzzle working together and trying to elevate other people. And I really have always believed this as a coach and as a leader. When you elevate other people, you elevate yourself. You don't need to elevate yourself above people. Elevate others. Give them the opportunities to do the things that they can do. And that's the biggest challenge I think we have in America, is providing opportunities, equal opportunities for everyone, because everyone has skills. It's unfortunate that some kids get better training. They get better opportunities because they can afford to pay it. So how do we present those opportunities for all kids, that may have that desire to do it, but can't afford to take dance lessons? That's what I'd love to see, that change, and us do provide more opportunities for all kids to develop and grow.
I agree 100%, man. We'll move on a little bit to your coaching days. I know we talked about it a little bit, and a little bit about the knowledge of coaching. But yeah, tell us a little bit about your De La Salle days. I know you won 17. Was it conference championships, or is that
Yeah.
section? Okay. Out of 18, right?
Yes.
And you're the most. You got the highest winning percentage in all of high school basketball.
Well, I think I'm in the top 2 or 3, but I think I'm up there. I think I'm second. Haven't checked that recently, but I think I was second when I retired in terms of winning percentage.
Okay. Well, just tell us about your time there. It doesn't have to go into too deep, but just give us a little overview.
My first job was at Northgate, and that was a tough one, because they hadn't had a winning attitude. They were really very eager. They were excited. They weren't used to working as hard as they were going to work, but we went in there with clear goals from day one. We're going to win the state championship. Now, this is a team that went 7-19 the year before, but we were going to convince them that we're going to win. And here's the plan. We're going to shoot. We're going to lift. We're going to play summer leagues. We're going to do this, and we're going to build this culture. And those kids embraced it completely. And I remember being on the outdoor courts. We didn't open the gym. We played outdoors. Kids say they don't want to play outdoors. We played outdoors because we wanted that New York City mindset that we play outside, So we were playing outside, and I remember pointing to Castle Rock Road and say, one day that street's going to be packed with people coming to your games. They probably got 20 people at their games, right? Yeah. And within a year, we were getting 3,000 people at our games. The place was packed. It was incredible. We played Mark Madsen, who played for the Lakers, and in San Ramon, he was an amazing player. That game was going to be packed. There'd be lines to get into it, right? Now you go to De La Salle 6 years later, and they thought they were successful, right? You start looking at, what their level of success, and I went in there with the same thought that, hey, we've got to set our aspirations higher. We're going to base this not on league titles. We're going to base it on section titles and state championship titles and all that. So, and I have to be honest, we got some resistance early on. The kids weren't willing to pay the price and do the things they were going to do because they had success there and not done a lot of those things. Right. And again, it was a different time. I'm not knocking anybody. It was a different time. Right. They weren't the summer activities and the summer league games. Kids pretty much went on their own and did their own thing. Well, we had a culture where, hey, we're going to do everything together. We're going to lift weights together. We're going to shoot together. We're going to go play summer. We're going to drive the summer league games together. And, it was a rocky road the first year or so, but then the kids really bought into it and good things happened as a result of it.
I like that as well, because I notice, sometimes you don't really know what you got till it's gone. Like, for example, at the USF team, I feel like we had a lot of good talent, but we just didn't really put it together, but towards the end of the year, and when like the year ended, where everyone's hanging out, we're we're hanging out outside of basketball together. That's when we started really getting close.
Right.
And you know, we all started playing pickup. You know, no coaches there. Everyone just laughing. Before it would be like section here, section there. You know, but I feel like you kind of take that for granted sometimes, and that's a big key of success. You know, is just getting to know your teammates and becoming a family. Because once you are like brothers and have those experiences off the court, you look to the side when you see somebody going for a rebound and you see someone next to him and you're like, damn, I got to box out. I got to help him out. You know, this is war, you know,
Right. Right.
let me get in there and help my brother out, you know, like it becomes
Yeah.
more personal, you know, like, no, you did not just get a rebound on my teammate, you know, no, you did not just go by him. I'm in help defense, you know, I'm gonna help him out. You know, the communication gets
Yep.
better. The overall chemistry just gets better, you know? So I love the way, you know, so for me, when I hear that, it reinforces what my thoughts. And when I become a high school or college, my ultimate goal is like to be a college coach, you know. But I definitely, after I graduate from law school, I want to take up a varsity job somewhere, you know. So I definitely want to implement a lot of the same things that you've been talking about here.
Well, I think you get that law school degree, you'll be great with officials. You'll be able to make your arguments and really support them with great data. So that'd be a real success thing for you. But I used to call the help side stance the friendship stance. You know, because in help side defense, you're there. Hey, instead of, I used to say, don't say I got your help. You know, you stay in help side. You go, I got your help. I got your help. No, I got your back.
Mhm.
I got your back. That's what you're telling your teammate. I got your back. You make a mistake, I'm going to cover for you. You know, and I say life is a lot like help side defense. Always be willing to give help, but never expect it. You know, you take care of your own business, you guard your own, but if you need help, you got your support, and I'm here to help you. You need help, I got your back. But do your job, and don't need help, that'd be a lot better for us too. But I do like that whole concept of defense. To me, is about friendship. You don't let down your friends. Somebody makes a mistake, you pick them up, you cover for them until they get back and get back and resume their life or resume their stance. So there's very great parallels between life and playing defense.
Yeah. So move forward a little bit. So how did you get the opportunity to coach in the McDonald's and Jordan Classic game?
Well, I don't know. The Jordan, I was called. It's a Nike event, and we were a Nike sponsored school. And I got called to coach that game. I coached Kevin Durant in that game, which was pretty amazing. It was a great experience to see him as a 17, 18-year-old kid. I remember looking at him and telling my assistant, I said, man, this guy's a diamond in the rough. I mean, he's a point guard at 6'10", nice guy, special person. And I really enjoyed that experience. And I got to go back to Madison Square Garden and play, in the Garden, which was the epitome of East Coast basketball. I played in the Garden at Notre Dame. So it was really wonderful to go back there. And then the McDonald's All-American game, I got the call from the committee. I think Morgan Wooten had a lot to do with it. Morgan and I were good friends, and Morgan was a great, and probably one of the greatest coaches of all time. And he had recommended me to coach that game. So, doing that was really another special event, because that game is so much more than just basketball. It's about going to the Ronald McDonald House and visiting sick kids. And I really does get these high school kids to get a perspective that there's a lot more out there than just basketball, and to really appreciate how blessed they really are. I remember one of the girls on that team, they had the boys team and the girls team, and one of the girls players actually, a young girl had asked this young woman to sign her autograph, and she said, no, I want your autograph. And it was so cool. She had this little girl, 5 years old, lost her hair from chemotherapy. And this girl signed her shoe. She said, no, I want to wear your shoe. Tomorrow I'm going to wear your name, because you're a hero. I'm just a basketball player. You're a hero. So those kids got to see that perspective.
That's a great story. As a coach, you go there to coach and maybe instill some values. But going to those type of games where you're coaching Kevin Durant, one of the greatest players of all time, and you've coached so many other NBA players, is there something that you learned personally or from basketball?
Yes and no. I mean, you're always learning from your players. I mean, you learn, I think it reinforces a lot of things you believe. Like, I remember Moutier, who I coached the McDonald's All-American game. At the end of the game, he wanted the ball. And I was running a play. He said, just get me the ball. And Stanley Johnson and all these guys, they got him the ball because they had so much respect for him. So, at an event like that, it's really cool to see you got 30 All-Americans, and who's going to step up, and be that guy that everybody's going to go to, So I thought that was pretty cool experience.
All right. I got one more question for you. I know we could talk forever, but I know you're a busy man. It's around lunchtime.
Another call.
Yeah, a little past lunchtime, a little bit. But but I don't know what else you got to do. But let's give you one more question. A little basketball question. Do you still watch the NBA?
I don't watch it as much as I can, Randy. I'm so obsessed with self-improvement through this pandemic. I'm taking Spanish lessons. I do that a couple hours a night. I'm working out. I'm trying to learn new skills. And so I don't watch a lot of I am watching the finals. I am watching that. I respect LeBron for his, durability and the amount of time he's played and what he's doing with different franchises is pretty remarkable. So I kind of enjoy watching these games.
Well, one last question to you: who is the greatest player of all time?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I can't comment on that. I'll throw one in the mix. You always hear about Jordan and you hear about, LBJ, but how about Wilt Chamberlain? Bill Russell. I mean, these guys were good players. Wilt could do whatever he wanted. Averaged 50 points a game, 25 rebounds, and then decide I'm going to break the all-time record for assists. I mean, there were some really talented players. I know we have discussions within my own family, so I don't want to start that up. So I'm not, but I would make some arguments for some of the older guys too. But obviously LeBron's up there, and Michael Jordan is, special player. I mean, how do you evaluate it? I couldn't pick, but I'll tell you, if I was picking my all-time team, I'd love to have those four guys to start. Russell, Chamberlain, and Jordan and LeBron would be pretty good team. Put Randy Cruzette in there, and I'm all set, man. We're ready to roll.
I appreciate you, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time. You're a great first guest to set off this podcast. I hope to have a bunch of great basketball minds, not only basketball. I'm looking forward to have a bunch of different sports, women, men, people with different colors. So
love it.
A pretty diverse podcast, and I know we could talk. Like I said, we could talk for hours. So maybe I'll get you on another time.
I'd be happy to come back because we just scratched the surface. So I'm really very happy to do that. I really am. So. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay.
Yeah, of course, man. And
thanks for all you're doing, Randy. You're a super guy, and you're driven, and you're a great role model for kids. Keep up the good work.
I appreciate it, Coach. Say hi to the wife for me.
Take care, buddy. See you, Randy.